You know, with all this crazy stuff going on, it's been a minute. I apologize for that. Can't promise it's going to change. At any rate, in this interview, I talked to Steele about burnout and about being FPV famous and what that means to him. And we talk a lot about kind of the impact that he has on people that get to meet him, because there really is an impact for him, right? And there's an impact for the people that get to meet him. He is a famous pilot, and it's really cool to hear his perspective on that. Hope that you guys enjoy it, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. So this is actually a complete left-hand turn. You mentioned burnout. Do you think you've ever burn out?
I burn out pretty frequently on a lot of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, specifically FPV, has there ever been a time that you were just like, set it down for a couple months or 6 months or whatever?
I do that now. I would say the last year, I've been kind of not burn out, but just, I'm not as motivated to go out and fly as I've been doing it 6 years now, 7 years, almost 6 years since 2014. So, if you go back and watch my videos, I was like hardcore into it for like 4 years. It was just wake up, I'm going to fly. And then you fly. That was it. There was nothing else in my life going on. And I'm not going to say that I don't wake up and think about flying, but it's just not my priority in a day. Like, to me, like, personal health is first, and then whatever I'm going to eat. Like, am I going to work out? Am I going to eat? Am I going to learn something? I always try to learn something every single day, regardless of what it is, whether it's like intentional or not. Like, usually it's about cars. I'm extremely interested in automotive sports, not in sports per se, but in just technology from the automotive community. So I really enjoy learning about like engineering. So to me, it's not that I don't want to fly. It's just, that's not a priority of mine to fly every day.
Yeah, you've reprioritized.
And I find out that if you don't fly every day, you get better, which is the strangest thing ever.
Dude, I've seen the same thing. Like, not that I'm like some kind of spectacular pilot, but I'll take like a month or two off, and then I'll go back, and all of a sudden I'm like, damn, I don't remember being able to do this before.
Yeah, I think your brain like recalculates how to work, and it just makes things super simple. It literally just focuses you on the only thing I need to do is stay in the air. You're not like concentrating on how much throttle am I inputting here? What is my, like, how sketchy is this? Or, how much am I doing that I don't like? Because usually when I end up flying too much is when I start over analyzing everything, and my flights become a little less flow oriented, and they become more just more trick oriented. And then I get really fed up on certain tricks. I'll get hung up on certain tricks, and I want to do that trick through everything. And it's never perfect. Like, I used to do Rubik's cubes a shitload. I still enjoy doing them a lot, but I would get to the point where if it wasn't perfectly flat and I wasn't doing a perfect roll and perfectly stopping and then pulling out perfectly, then I would like be frustrated, and I would just have to do it over and over and over and over and over till I got it perfectly. And now I've kind of learned that I have more fun basically just full speed everywhere and just avoiding things and making it look like I didn't mean to do that, or making it look like I meant to do it.
Right. Yeah.
You're just like in a space, and you're turning into a fucking like Donnie from Wild Thornberries, and you're just like going around ripping, and then you somehow make it look like you meant to do all of that. Because I have no plan when I go into a freestyle flight. I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna take off, I'm gonna do a flip over that, and then I'm gonna go down here and do that. It's just like, oh, obstacle, new obstacle, and you're just like doing new shit all the time, and that's what I think is fun.
I'm pretty certain that I've heard you make that noise while you were flying in one of your
if I haven't, the drone definitely has.
So let's jump into the FAA stuff. We're past the NPRM commenting. There were, over 30,000 comments. 50,000. I don't know the exact count. I know there were a lot.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
And it is, you know, it was really interesting from my perspective because it felt like, you know, nobody was interested. And then all of a sudden, you, myself, a lot of other people pushed like the last 2 to 3 weeks. And then that was including like the AMA and a lot of other people. And boom, all of a sudden there's all these comments, which was great. What do you know, what'll happen to, I mean, you know, if you had a crystal ball and you could cast forward, do you have any thoughts on what they might pass, what they won't pass, what it'll do to the hobby?
I mean, I think eventually there's going to be something that is like pretty detrimental to hobbyists doing anything, especially drone hobbyists.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think within 5 years, there's going to be some kind of dumb law that just makes doing what we're doing right now almost impossible. And I'm not really worried about that law because I'm going to fucking do that shit regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So what are they going to do? Like, come to my house and arrest me for flying a fucking drone in my backyard? I don't think there's ever going to be a point where what we're doing right now becomes enforceable or illegal to a point where it's actually, you know, you're actually reprimanded for it, other than just the FAA sending you a no letter or, you know, possibly a fine in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
But if it comes to that point, then I'm not going to be registered. Like, if it gets so ridiculous that it's impossible to do what I'm doing right now, I'm not going to be doing commercial shoots anymore. I'm not going to be doing things that require me to have X licenses to do. And yeah, they're going to probably be like, well, you need a license because you make money on YouTube and you need, you know, a license to make money on YouTube. And they've tried to use this argument before. And they're like, well, you know, that's what you do. If you make money through YouTube and you make drone videos, then you need a Part 107. You know, what if I'm not flying? They can't prove that I'm flying. They can't prove
who was flying. Yeah.
So fuck it, I'm going to fly. And I'm going to be like, yeah, Tony fucking killed it, dude. He was fucking ripping today.
I'm just so happy he let me post it to my channel.
Exactly, dude. Every time my fucking cousin Tony comes into town, he just shreds the skies. And he gives me the SD card and goes home like nothing happened. He's the real hero here.
Right, yeah.
So, you know, if it comes to that, then that's what will happen. But I don't know. Part of me thinks that they'll realize that what they're doing is potentially squashing not only a large industry, not only like a large industry of, you know, people coming into the workforce that are technically skilled, but also the amount of children that it would influence in a negative way. Because, you know, when I was in high school, elementary school, middle school, there was no such thing as like, I mean, there was robotics class, but it was complete bullshit.
Right.
Like if you were in robotics class, that meant that you didn't want to go to PE or something like that. And in robotics class was like, it was like DECA or something.
Mm-hmm.
You're not learning about marketing in DECA. You're basically just sitting there goofing off with your friends, you know, creating relationships that you already probably had or reinforcing them with friends. It's not even, the class itself is not you're not benefiting from the class.
Mm-hmm.
You're benefiting from the time spent with people. So, you know, I went to public school and I can honestly tell you that I don't remember a single thing that I learned ever in public school. I went to college for 5 years. I don't think I can recall a single class that I remember anything from, especially like, I mean, I probably remember things, but I have reinforced them through, you know, a continued education since then. So I've like built, there was no foundation. It was like this fragmented thing that I kind of knew a concept of. And then I went back and went and like filled that thing in until I had a huge foundation. Yeah. So yes, I guess school kind of implemented this like very fragmented foundation for me. But I probably would have found out about those things regardless if I went to school or not, just because I found out about them later. And it's not like I was intrigued by this foundation that I had that was spotty. It was just like I saw something cool, and that led to me listening to this guy talk about this thing, and then that led to me researching about this particular subject, and then I filled in a little bit of a spot, and then it just happens over and over again because the internet is the all-telling, false and true, depending on where you go.
It's like
there's a lot of bullshit.
The self-reinforcing echo chamber that can be very useful or completely screw you up.
Yeah.
I mean, just to echo that, like, I've learned a ton about electronics. Well, not electronics, but electricity since starting this, right? Like I've never soldered a thing before I did this. And now I can like look at a circuit and be like, oh yeah, that's a bad idea, or that's a good idea. It's not like I'm going to go rewire my house yet, but
AC is way different than DC. I can't even put a fucking switch on the wall. I don't know how to do AC.
Right? It's like, wait, whoa, there's too many wires.
There are.
But I'm also watching my sons get an education from it too, which is really cool. So yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that was actually a good argument that a lot of people put out was, hey, listen, like you're impacting the education of children going forward. Because
it's not like we're teaching them how to build bombs. Like if that was the case,
we're
then
not
actually. That would be a pretty serious problem. But
my favorite argument is that, oh, you can weaponize these. I'm like, yeah, I get 2.5 minutes of flight time. And yeah, maybe I can fly it a little bit far away, but like I'm not gonna be able to carry much. And it's probably not that big a deal. But
yeah, I mean, there are ways to weaponize them, but for the general human, it's not I mean, to be realistic, if you were driven enough, the problem is like I think the issue with what these people don't realize is if you're going to weaponize it, you're going to get caught. Not like it's not like you can get away with it once you weaponize it. Like the only way I've talked about this with many people before, but there's not really a way to like go do something and, be so far away that you were not caught.
Right.
Like if a drone takes off and you're close to a public event and you're trying to induce harm, someone's going to see where it took off from. They're going to see the truck that it came out of. They're going to see the person in it, whether or not they physically know who it is. Then they have an identification of that vehicle. There's cameras all around the streets that can identify that vehicle, see the license plate number, whether it's stolen or not.
Right.
There's eventually, like, unless you do something and then immediately leave the country, it's just like real fucking hard to get away with something like that. So to me, it's just as easy to like ram a car into a crowd of people as it is it would be a lot easier to do that than it would be to learn how to fucking build a drone for 6 months and then build this thing and try to, conceal the fact that I'm going to buy some C4 on the black market and strap it to this drone and then try to fly it over and detonate it remotely. Like all of that shit is a lot more complicated than most people that are going to harm people have, and time that they don't they're going to die or go to jail anyways. Why are they going to devote the next 6 months of their life to try to fucking figure something out so that they can maybe get an extra 30 minutes of getaway time, Yeah,
no, it doesn't. It really honestly doesn't make any sense. So you went to the route, the protest that the UFDA crew put together in DC. What did you think about that? Did you enjoy it?
I did. It was, I always enjoy going. It's not necessarily for the cause per se. Like it didn't matter the cause. It's always nice meeting people that do the same thing that you do. Mm-hmm. So the cause was great. And, there was a good turnout. It was cold as shit standing out there with, picket signs and doing whatever, we did out there. But at the same time, I enjoyed just meeting the people that showed up. And I think it was cool that there were people that showed up from so far away. There was a dude that drove from Alaska because he saw my video like a week before.
Drove from Alaska?
Yeah.
Do you remember the guy's name?
I don't.
Oh my God. I have got to find that person. That's insane.
He'll probably comment.
That level of dedication deserves recognition.
I know. I was like, Well, you know, when people talk to me, I'm always like, "Hey, where are you from?" Like, and
Yeah.
you know, I try to get a little bit personal with them because you just don't expect that from someone. You don't expect to roll up on somebody and be like, "Hey, you know, I've watched a shitload of your videos," and then them ask you about, you know, what you're doing and how you got there and where you're from and like how many kids you have, or you know, stuff like that, just personal stuff. And he was kind of thrown off, like, "Oh, I drove from Alaska. I saw your video last week and was like, fuck, I'm going." And I was like, "Oh, wow,
That
that's
guy is a
intense."
hero.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then
How
there
long
was
does it take to drive to DC from Alaska?
I think he said it was 34 hours or something like that.
Holy cow.
Maybe I'm mistaken. It could have been 24, but I want to say it was probably 34.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be absolutely insane.
I mean, I drove 11 and it was pretty gnarly. I watched
a
couple movies on the way there.
Yeah, you know, it was killing me. We had a I mean, I wanted to be there, but we had a family vacation plan. So I was attempting to beat my body against a mountain with a snowboard strapped to my feet while y'all were protesting. So I was also cold. But we had fun. It was a lot of fun. Do you have any, besides the guy from Alaska, do you have any favorite moments from the protest?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of favorite moments. There was like, not only you saw the video of me when I went out after the next day, and there was like all those people flying in the park or whatever, right?
I'll definitely ask about that, but yeah, go on.
So there was, it's funny, like every event I go to, I mean, I'm very personable with pretty much anyone that wants to take the time to come up and talk to me, and it's just super exhausting. I'm not gonna lie, like
it is. I
understand why people are so standoffish, like why famous people are so standoffish. It cracks me up that some FPV pilots that have like a couple thousand followers are like assholes when you talk to them in person, just because they're like, "I can't handle the fame, bro. I get like 3 messages a day and I just can't handle it."
Right.
It literally cracks me up because you know, you go to I think, what is it, like IO every year. I go to IO, not every year, but I go there, and you meet some dudes that you're like, I mean, this guy's kind of famous,
right?
But not to act like that. Yeah, like you're fucking an asshole. I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus, but I've met a few people that I'm just like, you have no reason to act like that. You're you're not Tom Cruise. Sorry. Right. You fly fucking mini quads, and that's all you're known for. And only 3,000 people in the world know about you, and you're acting like a fucking idiot. So, you know, regardless of how many followers I have, I just try to enjoy the fact that there's a shitload of different diverse people around, and they think they know me really well. So I like play into it. I'm like, well, they know me really well, so what are they like? So I try to get to know people on a personal level, and sometimes they don't know what to do. They're like, "What the fuck? Why is this guy hanging out with me?"
Right.
Like, it's just acting like I'm a normal person. I'm like, you know me from my videos. So in your mind, we hang out all the time. Now we're really hanging out. What are you going to do? That's kind of my mindset. And out of the group, like I would say out of, 30 to 50 people, there's always like 1 or 2 that stand out that are like, that can hang on they can hang on that level of, we didn't know each other at all, and now we're on the same wavelength, and we can hang out, and there's no like, you're Tom Cruise and I'm like in awe. Like a lot of people, for some reason, they just can't get over that, and they like have a hard time keeping a conversation because they feel like what they say is wrong, or they're like embarrassed to say things. I don't know. Yeah. I just feel like some people just have a problem with carrying a conversation on. But I mean, I'll just sit down with random ass people, mainly because there's never room at tables. Like all these other famous people hang out with other famous people.
Right.
And I just sit down at a table with a random group. And they're like, "What the fuck? Why is Steele sitting with us? Why isn't he sitting with all these fucking people?"
Right.
And then all the people from the famous table are like looking at me like, "Why are you over there?" And I'm like, "'Cause you guys are fucking stupid."
Yeah.
And these people are actually going to sit here and like have a normal conversation with me, and I can actually order food wherever we are. So,
Yeah.
But, yeah, I met one kid named Evan, Axial Tilt, I think is his Instagram tag.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there with his grandfather and his friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, I don't know. I like young people. He was like 17 or something.
Yeah.
And I was just like straight up like, hey, I'm going to a climbing gym tonight. You want to go? I'll show you how to climb. So I just invited him to go climbing in some random climbing gym in DC.
Mm-hmm.
And he went with me and we fucking hung out and I showed him how to climb. And then the next day we went into actually, you know, Tall Olaf, the racer dude.
I don't know if I do.
He's like super tall, skinny kid. His name's Olaf, and he's
Okay.
like a pretty racery dude. He's a pyro pilot.
Okay.
And I think he's got the Olaf FC or something as he's working on. He's like a pretty smart guy. Anyways, he went with us, and that Evan and his little crew, and then Olaf, and we went to this like National Aviation Museum or some shit in DC.
Was that the one in Dulles? Or
this was like right next to where we were, so like right next to the FAA Center. I don't know. It was like half closed because some shit, like the big section where all the cool planes were, was closed down. So there was really not that much to be seen, but there were some flight simulators in there. And I remember one of them saying, I think it was Evan, was like, yeah, we went in there and did some rolls and some flight simulators. And I was like, you can do rolls in a flight simulator? They're like, oh yeah. So we went in there and got in this whatever F-18, or I think it was probably closer to like an F-14.
Yeah.
And did some like legit combat FPV style, like sitting in the cockpit with a simulator style radio or remote or joystick. And I'm just like constantly upside down because you're strapped in and the thing physically turns upside down. So just for some reason, I was like, I just rolled it upside down and we were just fighting shit upside down and like pulling negative G's. We probably would have died many times. I'm just like pulling out of shit upside down and stuff. But yeah, we did that and then went to dinner and hung out and made some cool friends out of people that I had no idea who they were.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that you made that kid's weekend.
I mean, I didn't intend on doing anything like that, but I do think about shit like that when I'm laying in bed sometimes. I'm like, you know, I took the time, not necessarily for him, but like there's just conversations that you have with people at events like that go on way longer than I think the people think that they're going to go on.
Right.
Like I met this dude named Kev. There's like this just super tall dude at the event later that day. And he had an Evora, so we got into like a Lotus conversation, and he has a Giulia as well. So he has like an Alfa Romeo Giulia, which is like another one of my favorite cars. So we were just talking cars for literally like 30 minutes in front. There's just a group of people around us. There's like 20 people around us, and I'm just having a conversation about cars with this dude. And people are like, what's happening? Why is he talking to this guy? And it was just like
that guy famous.
It was just a long conversation of, you know, and meanwhile, there's all these other famous pilots hanging out with their famous friends and not really interacting with people. Not to say they don't interact with people, but it's just, I feel like it's I like to think that I try a little harder, and I'm exhausted at the end of the day from doing it, but it makes it all the worthwhile that I actually spent time to try to meet as many people as I could. And, you know, shake hands, get the corona, talk to people.
Get the corona. Yeah. I'm currently under quarantine for that. So, you know, let's talk about the flight, you flying for the crowd afterwards.
Okay.
That was, I think that was one of my favorite videos of the year so far.
Why?
It had, because it was authentic, number one. I feel like everybody goes out and, you know, they put all this effort into, you know, pulling the perfect lines and building the perfect flight video and doing the perfect things, right? And you were like, hey, you guys want to see something? And you just start like ripping around. I don't even think half the time you knew where you were. And, you know, at one point you're like, think I can knife edge that? You know, and like you can see all these people going, you know, everybody. I mean, it must have looked like a madhouse if you're on the outside looking in, because there's all these people with goggles on. There's no drone in sight, and everybody is freaking out over your flight because you know you had your stick cam on, and so you could hear everybody's reaction, which was, I think that might have been the best part, right? Where it was like you tried the first knife edge, and I think you got caught some scraggle, and it was like, oh. You know, it was just a lot of fun. Like I was like, that was really a lot of fun there. I mean, there was no music. You know, it was just authentic. You kept the mistakes in, and it was fun.
Just a raw flight. That was the first battery I'd flown in like 2 weeks. I mean, legitimately, when I was like, I haven't flown in a while, bear with me. I was like, that was the first time I plugged in a quad in a long time. So I don't know. Again, like I did feel it's weird when you go to an event, not necessarily that event per se, but that kind of had a similar vibe to like when you go to IO, because you have all of these pro people there. Yeah. When I say pro, like pro is it's such a weird word. Like if you're famous, you're pro. That doesn't mean you're a good pilot. Yeah. If you're sponsored, you're pro. Not to take anything away from anybody, but the variations of level of pro pilot are so varied, right, that it just doesn't even make sense. So, but anyways, there were a lot of pro pilots there, and just people in general, they kind of play it a little safe because they don't want to embarrass themselves in front of these peers or this crowd. Yeah. So you always see, like, I mean, someone will push it every once in a while if they're like egged on. But for the most part, it's just like, oh, let me flippy flop in this field. And then people will be impressed by my flippy flopping. And it's like, dude, they don't want to see you flippy flop. They want to see you fucking rage. Like, because online, they perceive your X good because of all these epic cuts that you put together. And it really shows when you go watch some of these guys fly live. It's not that they're bad pilots. It's just consistency is very noticeable, especially if you're under pressure and you feel like you can't do anything outside your comfort zone, otherwise you're going to crash. Where like 90% of the time when they go out and fly by themselves, they're, you know, pushing themselves out of their comfort zone because they're with their friends and they're having fun. But when you get in front of a crowd, it's always like, yeah, I'm going to hold back. I'm going to do like 60-70% what I can do, because I don't want to embarrass myself and crash and have to go walk and get my quad in front of this group of people. And like, I'm so beyond the point of impressing people that I just fucking like to fly. And I don't care if I crash. Like, if I crash, cool, whatever. I'll go fucking walk and get my quad. And I did. I went and walked and got quads like more than once that day. The second battery, I crashed like 3 times. Had to go get my shit, change props. Yeah. Or I take that back. I didn't change props. I just bent them back and then kept flying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, one thing that there is a trend on your channel that I've noticed, and I think you've already commented on it, which is it's just like, okay, guys, here's a pack. I'm gonna put my stick cam down. I'll show you my DVR, and I'll turn the GoPro on. Let's just fly. You know, you're not putting together as many or really any, like, you know, sick edits. It's just you going out and it's like, here's a pack, enjoy it. Yeah. Do you think that works for other people? Like if other people were to take a more off, I mean, there's an authenticity to that, right? Like, do you think that other people could get away with that? Or do you think that, you know, people have to build the beauty into it from other areas?
I think a lot of people have tried, and it's really difficult to get an audience doing that. Mainly because it's not just how you fly, but it's how you interact with the camera from a personality perspective.
Yes.
And I don't even have to say anything when I fly, but it's just the way that I kind of extend my already ridiculously overclocked brain into a drone, and what I do with it kind of makes it have its own personality. Like I was flying for my this girl I've been dating for a while now. I flew for her the first time the other day just around my house. And she was like, it's like a little human. I'm like, yeah, it's like a fucking little me ripping around the sky. Like, because you've known me for whatever, like 6 months, and now you're seeing the robotic version of me that flies. So, and she like immediately picked up on the fact that it was literally like an extension and it felt organic, where I think a lot of people, it's hard for them to get into that mindset where the thing that they're flying is actually a part of them. So to make it do things that they would do is, you know, they're not thinking like that. Like I've gotten to the point now where I'm not even thinking to fly. I'm more just reacting to the environment, and me reacting to the environment is extremely organic, where when you fly, it can be kind of robotic. Like if you're going out specifically to fly, you're not thinking about the environment. You're thinking about how you're going to avoid the environment. And I'm just like, oh shit, a tree, like rip around it. Like what I would do if I was, you know, the size of a fucking mini quad and was capable of doing 70 miles an hour within a fraction of a second. Like that's what I would do because it's fun.
You know, going back to the interaction that you have, like you definitely have an interaction, and it's actually in those videos that we're talking about, like, you know, you'll say things like, oh, where'd that come from? You know, or like you'll just, it's none of it's scripted, right? Like you're totally just reacting to the moment. And I think people enjoy that. I have noticed that with my own flight edits, like people started saying, hey, Mike, do you even fly? So I was like, okay, fine. You know, I talked to Vic, and he kind of inspired me, and I went out and I flew and I put a flight edit together, and most of it was just, you know, I have these, I'm still at the stage where, you know, it's just exploding half the time. And I often pick up my drone and I'm just laughing because the sheer absurdity of the situation. Right. And so I started including me laughing in the edits, and people loved it. I was like, what? Why are you guys even watching this crap? And I'm convinced it has more to do with the interaction than it does the actual flight. Because
well, they want to fly with you. They don't want to fly. Like there's a difference between the person that wants to watch some sick edit and a person that wants to watch that person.
A person.
Like they want to be they want to be with them. And the easiest way for you to do that is to essentially bring them along in your pocket and have them fly with you. And that's kind of the experience that I've built over the last, you know, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning of flying drones and making FPV edits, it was all about doing tricks and then putting it to a song that, you know, kind of fit the style of flying. So I was kind of gifted in that area because I grew up as a musician and I went to school for, you know, I'm classically trained in vocals. I played guitar for 10 years before I even started flying FPV. I had been in many bands before, and my music repertoire of like what I consider to be good music, I think is a little different than most people my age. I mean, I don't necessarily I'm not like specifically, I only listen to 1970s music, or I only listen to 1990s music, and I only like this one genre.
Right.
Like I like all music as long as it's good. And what I think is good usually translates into people being like, what the fuck is this music and where did it come from? I want it. So it doesn't matter where it comes from. And that's one thing that I've always been a little self-conscious of, especially I'm not very good at dressing, and I'm always self-conscious about what I'm wearing and if it doesn't look good and shit.
Yeah.
Well, you know, growing up, I used to skate a shitload, and I would go to the skate park and there'd be all these like fashionable skaters. They'd have all like the They'd have all the
Right?
freshest gear on. They got the
Right.
freshest shoes with the double
Yep.
tongues, and they just look good. You're like, damn, that guy looks like he's fucking sick. And then he sucks ass. And you're like, well, you know, he still looks cooler than I do, even though I can do more tricks than he can.
Yeah.
So even with music, it's been like that. But I don't really notice it as much. Like I've never put a song on something and then in the back of my mind been like, are people gonna like this song? Like, I don't give a fuck. I like the song, so I put it out there, and it just so happens that it's like this special type of music that a lot of people that understand music like.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's not like I'm putting that was one of my most biggest pet peeves, like in the early FPV days, is when people would just go find the most generic copyright free bullshit music or some like fucking rave dance music and just throw it over an FPV edit. It's like, you know, that would have been cool, but because you put the song over it, literally killed the whole video and no one could watch it.
There was always that girl that was like, ah! Like every time.
I thoroughly enjoyed that entire conversation. Now, the interesting thing is that these two interviews, which I've just kind of put out there, those were pretty much the meat of it, but there's something special to come. And you'll see it eventually. I think I may edit it and put it out faster. But it's super exciting, a lot of fun, and definitely a side of Steele that I think a lot of you have not seen. Anyways, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.